your heart begins to palpitate into a feel of anxiety, pain, and pressure. Oh, the energy is depleting, taking into you into a world itself of fear, a frequency that seems so real. Oh, breathe and take in the breath of life, the divine life force energy that is here to give you the channeling of your divine light. Oh, wow. What is this great experimentation of fear on this earth? Oh, if we look at just a simple depiction of what it means, it is simply a emotion that takes us into a place of great anxiety and pain that seems so real, but of course is based on our internal and external feelings that just gives us a false reality of what it really means. Fear. Fear, the frequency of fear, false evidence appearing real. Where did it stem from? Who created it? And why is it so prevalent on this earth? Wow. We have been living in a state of fear. A frequency that has just programmed us into just going into a place and an emotional state of mind that simply takes us away from who we truly are. And as we begin to diverge into this great mystery of where this great fear frequency has derived from, we will see that it was simply just created just to keep us in a limited state of frequency. Now, we now begin to see as we go further into understanding fear that there have been programming that has connected the brain, the part of the brain into the amygdala that shows this, just sends shocks waves through our body that causes the emotional response of anxiety and pain and just this overwhelming, unwelcoming frequency of fear. But what we are now beginning to see is that this has simply been created to keep us into I would say very unusual state that has created our reality. Now, if we delve deeper into fear, just breaking it down, false evidence appearing real, we could go back to the eons and ages of time, studying ancient times where we have seen that, civilizations, of course, begin to advance. Now, we as the humankind have been one with each other, being in our equal nature and equal state. But once we began to expand in our outside world and becoming civilized and, advancement of technology, of course, and just seeing what exists amongst the world around us, we began to see that the illusion of fear has been created. Now we could go back to see that once systems and structures began to form, mankind began separating, of course, into status like structures and even just the separation of animals and plants and our ecosystem, and of course we began to see that fear just began to take a rapid course and stage in our state of evolution where fear became a great frequency when people had to go through stages of war. They had to go through stages of here we have the mass media creating fear, the fear frequency of death, and even the fear frequency of the unknown, and most of all the fear frequency of our creator source itself, what most of us consider and call God. But what is this purpose of this fear frequency? we shall delve deeper into understanding why fear was created, its purpose, and why it has to now be completely eliminated off the face of the earth as we continue to evolve. We are now being taken into a state and a frequency of conquering our universal fears. You see, the fear frequency has been created to keep us in a lower dimensional field, of not knowing the existence of our full potential. Wow, this great false evidence appearing real has become so vast and dynamic in this world that we, of course, cannot take this with us if we are to continue to evolve. Now, individually and on a collective level, the fear frequency has become rampant. Oh, fear of this and fear of that. But what I want to focus on is on the collective fear frequency that has been going on. Okay, if we go back to the ages and eons of time, once we began to divide and separate as humankind, we begin to see that one of the greatest fear tactics was to create this great divide and separation of fear. Even the word itself has fear in it. You see, when humankind began to become really too materialistic and to who wanted to have this status, this possession, this, system of a caste-like structure that said, I am on top of you and you are beneath me. Of course, the frequency of fear became rampant. If we look at ancient timelines, Babylonian timelines, we'll see that we had the kings and, the upper echelon, depict fear and, just take over. If we look in our Bible, we'll see, when, fear frequency was created into the suffering of man, warfare for possessions and who had more and who owned this property and who owned this part of this world and who, of course, developed power. Now we begin to see this great frequency of fear was simply created for power and dominion over others. And you see the innocence of humankind when we began to be born into a state of amnesia, into different incarnations, to forget who we truly are as divine beings connected as one source. We fell into this programming system of fear. Well, let's all let go of this fear frequency and release it off into the state of nothingness where it became from. Wow. Fear, as we go through this great shift, we begin to see that, wow, we have a fear frequency going on in our present day time that has become rampant on the face of the earth. Now, I first shed light on warfare, which is still going on, and if you really look at it closely, not focusing too much on past time, what we could simply ask the question, what is the purpose of warfare? Is it simply for possessions, for status, or to just keep some in a limited state of mind? We ought to eliminate this presence of fear. Now, as we go forward, another rampant state of fear is the fear from mass media, be it on our television, the internet, the radio, even just through our day-to-day communing with each other, the speech, the song, any form of communication. We see this rampant stage of fear. Oh, this is gonna happen. A storm is coming. Oh, we're going into a state of, a recession, oh, we will not have enough. As we begin to see, it's just a programming way of creating a false reality. Now, where we ought to go forth is internally. As I take you within and show you as you are now being shifted, and as we are shifting collectively with the earth, we're beginning to see that, wow, if we go even through just looking at the measurement of time, we see that collectively we have been shifting through this great awakening time with the earth through the dark night of the soul. Now I know many of you may still be going through that great feeling of, the dark night where, of course, it feels like you are in a dark tunnel, like the old version of you is shifting. Even when you go, you're like, you don't recognize anything. Many are experiencing it, like they go through stages of fear. Okay, maybe you lost something, you lost a material possession, you lost a family, and most of all, you lost who you thought you always were. Your mental capability has been depleted. Your emotional sense of belonging has gone to a state of nothingness, and you begin to go into a fear frequency. Of course, it feels like it's dark because light, of course, means life. Light, of course, creates a beautiful potential feeling that everything is still in its great magnitude and place. Now, the focus of showing you this is to show you that the mass media fear in connection to the dark night of the soul. As we begin to go through this great shift, we'll see that you turn on your TV sets and the greatest fear frequency created was the news. Oh well, the stock market has crashed. The prices are gonna be hiked up because we're going into a state of recession. Oh, your houses and cars, maybe increased. But of course, when you look at it, you see that, wow, the build-up, as I presented to you in the beginning, is this emotion. You see, when we begin to see that, the interconnectedness of everything, you see why it's so important for you to go through your dark night of the soul and elevate. Because once you go through that dark night and that tunnel that takes you into that internal state of death of your old self, the limited version of yourself, that's now wanting to expand into higher states of consciousness, into your multi-dimensional self, you begin to see that, wow, the state of fear is so prevalent because humankind has simply been too attached to the material version of themselves and not at one with the spiritual beingness of who they truly are. Now, the dark night of the soul, why it's called a spiritual awakening, of course, takes you to that place, takes you within, takes you to all the places through even past timelines, your present, and where you ought to go to tell you, like, look at this. Why is your emotional body so restrained, so fearful of the unknown? Why is your mental body so limited and so programmed to only think and feel a certain way? You see, we are now seeing that the mass media, the external version of fear, is now infiltrating into our spiritual beingness and creating this false sense of reality, letting us know that, wow, the materialness around us is crashing. But what we ought to say is that when we quote unquote say a new earth is being birthed, we have to see that we ought to be replenished. We ought to be rebirthed. We ought to develop a true spiritual essence in connecting with the divine oneness that resides within us. And now we ought to expand. So really, maybe this fear frequency is not too bad after all, because we see that it has taken continuously evolving and expanding. So when we begin to see that, we now have to co-create from within, fully expand, be rebirthed into a true essence that connects us to the greater divine. Now, on that topic of the divine, the presence, the oneness frequency that lives within us, but of course is all around us, the co-creator presence. Now, as controversial as this topic is, we have to look at it at a deeper level. Man has created religion and pretty much separated us from what truth or essence or creator essence. Whatever it is that you believe in, you ought to know that you are one with a creator source. Now, whatever your belief is, whether you believe in a deity, whether you believe that, you have maybe a person or, a thing or object, or you connected with the multi-universe and you know that, wow, you have a source presence that created you. And as we always use that popular term, we were created in its image and likeness, we begin to see that we of course are one with source. Now, the free frequency and religion has showed us that we are separate from this presence, and this presence is here to be depleting to us, to punish us for our sins when we go to an unfavorable state of actions and realities. But what we ought to see is that this great divide and separation from nature is simply another fear tactic that we cannot continue to live with, and if we ought to continue to evolve and expand. Now, as I've shown you before, I just want to take you to a place that shows you that fear is just an internal experimentation. You see, we know that we are beings of love. We are beings connected to source, and we of course, once we develop into our fullest potential, this great illusion and frequency of fear is not where we ought to be. The external world around us is not to continue to deplete us through this emotion, this pain, anxiety, struggle, frequency. It is now showing us that we are taken into a state of expansion where we first have to connect internally and become co-creators of our life and fully. We cannot continue to be stricken with this depletion of our emotional bodies, and continue to be programmed and be taken into a mental state where our perceptions are just far, far, far from the divine truth. So, where we ought to go now is continue to merge with the oneness within, the divine concept of masculine and feminine, logical and emotional, mental and emotional bodies that connects with your one spiritual, astral, causal, you name it, going out into the greater universe, connecting us to source, and saying that I cannot continue to live in this lower dimensional frequency of fear. On a collective level, now, it's not to say so much that, okay, maybe if mass media frequency was eliminated, it will stop all of this. But we cannot continue to allow a few, who wants to take the earth into a limited timeline to continue to affect us. We now have to become so of these diseases, this depletion of our financial system. And when we connect it all, as we continue to understand, we even see that studying of scientific astronomy, astrology, gives us certain teachings, of where we are going. And okay, maybe we are going through a recession, maybe our financial markets have crashed, maybe we have been zero pointed, and building a new earth with this push and pull energy that seems that it's taking forever. But unless we go within and perceive our reality different, the initiation stage, the God presence that lives within each and every one, to connect us to our emotional heart, feminine nature that says, wow, I'm not going to take myself into this pain, stricken anxiety feel. Instead, I know that I'm evolving. I'm going to continue to, regardless of what's going on around me, create that internal bliss. Go to whether it's a no man's land place that I feel in my wholesomeness and my oneness. All of this creation of illnesses and ailments and, stories, as we may see this great Matrix movie that's playing out. We ought to go within, connect deeply with our spiritual essence, and to be able to rebuild and recreate a material presence that is fully connected to who we truly are on an equal nature, and that we continue to eliminate the collective fear frequency that lives within us and all around us if we ought to continue to evolve. So diverge into your divine oneness, my friends, and shout as you continue to eliminate what has been previously known as fear, into creating divine harmony all around you, spreading outbursts of love. Go forth and eliminate the collective fear frequency as we are all learning to conquer all universal fears. Bliss shines forth into our eternal love frequency, into the infinite dimensions of oneness and wholesomeness within and all around us. Be gone, fear.